Welcome to Lesson Impossible, an exploration of educational innovation. I'm your host, Aviva Levin. As always, I'm chatting with educators of all types who are on the forefront of pedagogy or making effective changes to old practices. Your lesson, should you choose to accept it, is to consider a new resource, FamilyBookForm, a digital template for students to collect stories from their family or larger community. The resource specialist assigned to help you with this task is Carey Furze of Sydney, Australia. Welcome to another installment of the Meet the Resources series, where I feature the educational equivalent of gecko gloves, smart contacts, or flute guns. Technology that has been created to make your impossible lessons actually possible. A reminder that Lesson Impossible receives no compensation for featuring resources, just the satisfaction of knowing that somewhere a student might be more engaged in their learning, or a teacher might be able to leave work a little bit earlier. Carey, thank you so much for joining me. I believe you are in my tomorrow in Australia, and here I am in Seattle in your yesterday. So thanks so much for getting up early to talk to me. I'm excited for this Mini Meter Resource episode. So maybe you could just start off by talking about who you are and what your resource is.
Well, thank you for having me, Aviva. My name is Carey Furze. At the moment, I'm in Sydney, Australia. So we're coming into summer. So I originally was an English teacher many years ago. I mainly had writing jobs through my career since being an English teacher, but more lately I wanted to become a book creator and a book publisher to help other people write about their lives and create their books. So originally I created it as a resource for retirees, and they could follow my template page and easily speak their stories into the template page and create their memoir product. But there was a lot of resistance. They didn't want to use technology, but the main problem was that they didn't want to push their lives and themselves onto their families. What they wanted was their grandchildren to ask them about their lives. So I changed the product to be an educational resource. So it's a resource for teachers to assign this communication project-based learning, and it's called FamilyBookForm.com. So an online resource that teachers can easily assign as a project to a class of students or a whole year group, and those students can go and interview their family members. So primary schools have sort of been doing it for many years, getting kids to interview a family member, but this is mainly for high school students because it's mainly in the high school years, the teenage years, that kids are turning away from their families and going more to their peer groups to develop their identities and their values. So I wanted to sort of bring that age group back to their families or keep them in the fold of the families and find out a little bit more about who their family members are and get them to speak face-to-face or and record those stories, and it's automatically transcribed using the speech-to-text. But it's also useful for grandkids whose grandparents speak another language maybe. And kids tend to, it's not that they're not interested, it's that they don't really know what to ask. So the template page of questions and answer boxes sort of guides them on an interview, and they can collect those spoken stories and then collaborate in the classroom by sharing those stories and maybe collaboratively editing in the classroom. So that enriches lessons so everyone can sort of hear different people's life experiences and stories in the classroom. And then the book is automatically created and can be presented to families. So that's in a nutshell what the product is.
In looking through your website, I see that because of COVID-19, teachers have been using it in a very unique way, where instead of waiting for their grandkids to ask them about the Great Plague of 2020, some high school students are creating a COVID-19 and Me book to capture this historic moment that they can keep and share and almost use as a primary source in their own lives.
That's right. So I created the technology for students to go and collaborate with their families and community and collect stories. But lately, because there's a free freemium level for the product, so teachers can sign up for free and they can create a book for free. So that free book is an online digital book creating dashboard for 1 year. So they can invite up to 300 people to contribute content to that book. They can have 2 hours voice to speech to text, and they can print on demand. So that using their free book component to invite their students, maybe a class of students or even a whole year group of students, to contribute their experiences of what the pandemic has been like for them. So this has been used by teachers as a sort of a primary resource to collect their communities of their students' stories and experiences, and then they can discuss that in the classroom. But it creates a tangible product that they can then keep in their school's library, and it's very valuable. And the teachers that have done these projects have commented that the students are more conscientious about wanting to write well because they realise the importance of documenting this important moment in time. And so they're very conscientious about what they're writing, that they're writing correctly, and they're proud of the end result, and it's something tangible that can be discussed and celebrated. And it's really helping the academic side of a classroom, but also it's an online resource, and it's a tangible, valuable product at the end.
I have to admit, in looking around your website, I was like, yeah, this is really interesting. But then when I got to the Our Care Aged Care page, where students were interviewing elderly residents about their lives and then presenting the book and contrasting their own lives to these basically strangers at the beginning of the project, I'm not going to lie, I got a little teared up when I saw it.
Oh, well, thank you for that, because that was my sort of pinnacle result that I wanted to generate. And you can hypothesize when you're creating technologies that it will achieve a certain thing, but until you actually see it achieved, you really don't know. And so there's many projects that students can do, but the first project is maybe the teacher invites the students to contribute stories. So that's sort of the COVID-19 and me story, but we've had it used as a STEAM project for creating a Mother's Day book or a Grandparents' Day book, where the teacher invites the students to contribute their stories about a grandparent or a mother or a father. So that's the class collaborative book. But then the idea is that the students go and create their own book and collaboratively with whoever they choose. So there's a lot of personalization and differentiation capabilities in the website. And so the next project on from the collaborative class book is maybe the students can create their family's recipe book. So the student is interviewing their family about their favorite recipe and maybe the cultural stories around that special food, and they create their own family book that then is valuable to that family because they want to buy it and they want to celebrate their family's personalized recipe book. And the next project on from that is students interviewing a particular family member, maybe creating their memoir, or the whole family. And many people can contribute content directly into that book. So it's good for less academic kids as well, because they feel like they're really achieving something, where really they're using technology as a tool to do something more than they would normally be able to do. So they can collate a lot of dispersed content that's personal and important to that family and to them. So when it's personal content like that, the students are more interested to learn about literacy and language mechanics and the difference between spoken story and written story. So they're then receptive to the teacher's teaching about what is proper writing and things like that. And then the final project is getting these kids, when they're older, at least over sort of 16, 17, they need to be a little bit more mature. And then they go into the community. So that project you spoke about was going into elder care homes, and they were matched with an aged resident in that home, and they visited that home once a week for 10 weeks. And they, initially they were nervous. They're teenagers. A lot of them hadn't been exposed to older people or strangers. And so they just followed my template of questions. And so this gave them the confidence to carry on. And then they came up with their own questions. And so they just follow the template questions. Then they can record the spoken stories, and then they can work on that back at home or at school. They can play those stories for other kids in the classroom that hadn't gone out to the community. And so it was a great way for engaging everybody in the class and enjoying those personal life stories from elder people in their community. But then they could easily create a digital book that is then downloaded as a PDF, and they gifted that to the aged people and their families. But the good thing about this is that it's a way that you can monetize students' time, or it's a way that students can monetize their own time. So this is a community service that can be offered to organizations or companies in your community. So you can offer to do a project for the church elders or some particular migrant group or something like that, and the students can go and interview those groups of people and save the stories and save the voice and create a polished end book product that can then be sold to that community. So the aged care business sponsored that school to do that project. So it's a fundraiser for the school and or it's potentially a fundraiser for that student.
Yeah, I imagine it can be used as well in terms of fundraising for instance, like let's say you're trying to improve COVID times, but like work with Syrian refugees in your community and find out what their experience is. And I know that at least where I'm from originally in Canada, families could get together and sponsor a Syrian family. And so to record that and maybe even fundraise by sharing that so that other families could then be able to come, I think would be a really cool way of sharing the stories to make a big difference.
Well, that's right. So it's not just about creating a book. You know, the book at the end is just something that's tangible that can be graded and included in the student's portfolio as proof of their learning or reflection, or it can be sold or gifted. You know, it's a tangible product at the end. But probably the most important part of the project is that process of getting kids to engage with other people and actively listening to what other people have experienced. Because if you don't ask the right questions or don't ask any questions, then you never find out anything. So often kids don't know what to ask. So it's not that they're not interested, it's that they're awkward, especially in those early teenage years. And especially nowadays, there's less and less talking. And so it's the process of getting these kids to talk and to listen and to open their eyes to other people's experiences. But unless you capture that information, it's only valuable and only enjoyable for the two people at the time of the conversation. But saving that conversation, saving that experience means that it's can be valuable from a wider group of people, and not just now, but in the future as well. So it's the process of communication that's important, but unless you document it, there's no long-term value.
So for teachers that are interested in investigating this for use in their classroom, how would they go about doing that?
Well, go to the FamilyBookForm.com website, and there's many explainer videos and case studies. We're a partner with Google, and so we have integrated into the Google Classroom platform. So if you do use Classroom, then you can assign as a project to a whole class or year group. But you don't have to be using Classroom. It works on any device connected to Wi-Fi. And so just start with the first project, which is you as the teacher signs up for free, and you can create a free book. And what would be great is to do the COVID-19 and Me book, or maybe in your community, if it's a Black Lives Matter is a big theme at the moment in your area, then you could do a Black Lives Matter book. Or, you know, maybe it's a particular theme around your town of something that's happened lately apart from COVID-19. But, you know, the COVID-19 thing is a global pandemic, so it's something that would be valuable to save. And it's an easy one where you just invite the class of kids to contribute their stories and experiences and photos, and it automatically goes into your digital book, and you can edit it, you can change it, and you can print it out or share online for a year. So create your free book. There's an explainer video, a 2-minute video there that you can have a look at, and that will show you how to do it. But it's pretty intuitive. And within a couple of minutes, you can log on for free, send an invite to all your students, and they would log on and be able to work remotely from wherever they are, and then submit their content. And then you can use that digital content, their perspectives and experiences and photos in online discussions in Classroom, and that can enrich your lesson. So try that project, and then we can work on doing more projects after that where kids go and interview their family members and create their own family's recipe book or memoir book, or then go into the community.
And in terms of just digital copyright, does the original poster retain that, or do you somehow take possession of the rights to any of their photos or scripts of interviews or anything like that?
I don't own anything. It's all the user-generated content, and they own their content. So as a Google partner and as a technology company nowadays, we use AWS servers, which is Amazon servers, and your digital content is held on our Amazon encrypted servers in your country. So I don't access any of that digital data, and you own that it's online for a year. I host it for a year. And so you can access and edit that content and change it and download it as many times as you like. So the idea is that you do a project sort of over maybe 8 weeks or something like that if you wanted to, and then download the PDF, and you can print it at your own printer or a local printer. So you can make it as affordable as you like, whether, you just do the online book and don't ever print it. Maybe if it's grandpa's memoir and it's quite precious to the family, then the family can send that PDF file to their local printer and get a beautiful hardbound glossy keepsake book created for the family, and maybe do 10 copies for the family or 20 copies or something like that.
Awesome. Well, Carey, thank you so much for taking the time to share with me and the listeners your resource. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be checking that out. So thank you again.
No, thank you. I'd love to hear from anyone who does that COVID-19 and Me project with their class, a collaborative book. So there's online tutorials on how to do that if you want as well, masterclass. And so, let me know. And I'd love to showcase it. And there's teachers presenting their case studies all around the world at conferences. So you could be one of those if you wanted.
That was another mini Meet a Resource episode with Carey Furze of FamilyBookForm, a website that provides class, family, and community digital book project templates. This episode will not self-destruct in 5 seconds, but will be available along with links to resources we mentioned and information about previous special agents at lessonimpossible.com. Now, if you like the podcast, please consider forwarding it to your colleagues or rating and reviewing it on your podcast listening app. This has been Lesson Impossible, and I was your host, Aviva Levin.